Hey guys, Ms. Ricks here. For this unit, we've been talking about the principles of ecology, and we kind of transferred into macrobiology, which is basically biology that we can see, biology on a bigger level than what we've been talking about on a cellular level. So, first of all, what is ecology? So, ecology is the study of interactions among organisms within a group, as well as organisms in other groups or other species, and how they interact within their environment or their surroundings. So, first, we'll talk about the non living environment. So, non living environment, which is abiotic factors, remember A means non, bio means living, so non living factors. These are factors such as temperature, um, currents, if you're talking about water, um, moisture, light, the soil, rocks, sediments, air currents, any of those non living factors that affect an ecosystem. So, abiotic factors do have a great effect on an organism's life, and we're going to talk more about that throughout this unit. There's also the living factors in the environment. So these are things such as the plants, obviously, the animals, but there are also things like the bacteria involved in the environment. And all organisms are going to depend on others, organisms within its environment, for food, shelter, reproduction, or protection. Um, so they're going to interact together on indirect as well as direct levels. So let's talk about their habitat versus their niche or their niche. So a habitat is going to be the place a plant or animal lives. So this is just where that animal is and where it lives. Whereas a niche is kind of the role it plays within that environment. So a bacteria might have its niche might be to decompose. That's its niche or what it does, what role it plays in that environment. There's also levels of organization within living things in an environment. The most basic level of organization is called an organism, and that's basically anything that's living is going to be an organism. An organism must be made of cells, use energy, reproduce, must respond to its environment, grow, and develop. And these are all stipulations for any living thing. So an organism can be a plant, an organism can be a bacteria, an organism can be a human. This is basically the basic level of life. So how can we continue these organizations and group them into different organizations? So ecologists study different parts of ecology. So they can study how groups of similar organisms come together, and those are called species. So species is a group of organisms that are similar to one another that they can breed and reproduce. So remember, a species doesn't have to be in one area. They just have to be able to reproduce if they were put together. So you can have a same species on a North American continent as you can have, say, on a South American continent. It doesn't have to do with where they are at, where they are located. Whereas a population does. So a population is a group of species that live in the same area. So they must be able to reach each other and breed in that sense. So population is going to be a group of organisms that live in one area. So there might be a population of toads, say in a pond on our school, and then there might be another population of toads in a pond in, say, Minnesota. They might be the same species, but they are not the same population. So then we have communities, and communities are different species that interact together in one area. So say a community on the farm near a pond might have catfish in it. It might have pond grass, It might have toads and turtles. This would be a community in one environment or one little ecosystem. Okay, so what's the difference between all of these and an ecosystem? So an ecosystem is going to be a collection of all the organisms that live in a particular place together with their non-living environment. So if you look at this picture here, we have different species of fish, but we also have coral here. Those are all living, but it's also part of their ecosystem is the water, which is non-living, or the sand, which is non-living. So ecosystem, living and non-living things together. And you can have really small ecosystems. You can have really large or macro ecosystems. And then the larger systems are going to be called biomes. And biomes is a group of ecosystems that have the same climate or similar communities. So they are definitely going to have the same climate. So they're going to have similar vegetation. They're going to have similar animals with certain adaptations. They might not have the same, but they're going to have similar adaptations in order to live in that environment. And we'll talk more about biomes as we move on to different units. And then the largest level of organization would be the biosphere. And this is any parts of Earth that supports living things. So this would be our biosphere. So just a little vocab. And we've talked about this before, but biodiversity. So bio means life, and diversity is going to be diverse or differences in life. So biodiversity kind of measures the health of an environment, but this is the assortment or variety of living things in an ecosystem. So what has the highest biodiversity? What biome has the highest biodiversity? This is going to be our rainforests, but we also have aquatic ecosystems that are really diverse, like the coral reefs. So these are both very biodiverse ecosystems. And in turn, they are most affected by changes in environment and changes in their ecosystem, changes in their food webs, things like that. So relationships within an ecosystem, they're very complicated. They have chain reactions. So if one factor changes, it's going to affect the other factors in an ecosystem. It'll cause a ripple effect. So we don't necessarily always know what will happen if a certain animal goes extinct, or if a certain climate changes. All these relationships within an ecosystem are really important to maintaining that ecosystem. And so some are more important than others. We have keystone species that change the whole ecosystem if their population is disrupted. So an example of this would be a beaver. A beaver is a keystone species because they use fallen trees to make dams, and this changes the whole habitat of a stream. Okay, so that is all I'm going to talk about in this video. Please feel free to rewind, and I will attach a quiz to this, so make sure that you complete the quiz and have a great day.